that like a month ago I was wearing sweaters and thick knit shirts. Those are sweaters. And now I'm sitting here in my t-shirt wearing a skirt because it's suddenly 10 degrees warmer. Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad to see you again, and I can't wait to talk about all the books that I read during the last 2 months, which is May and April. So I didn't film a reading wrap up in April because I was kind of burned out by reading all those thick books. Like, I reread the Court of Thorns and Roses series, so I needed a bit of a reading break because it was a lot. But now I'm back to talk about the 10 books that I read these past 2 months. So let's just dive right into them. As I've just mentioned, I reread the Court of Thorns and Roses series, but since I've talked at length about these books, I'm not gonna say too much about them. You probably already know what they are about anyways. In April, I finished my reread with A Court of Wings and Ruin, which the first time I read it was not my favorite at all. I think it was a bit of a letdown actually. I remember being super excited for this. I think at the time I was living in Ireland when this came out, and I just stayed inside my little student living apartment for I think 2 days binging this. And I was so disappointed the first time. But now I knew what to expect. I knew that this book was more plot heavy because we've dealt with all the character stuff, or almost all the character stuff, in book 2. So I really appreciated this more the second time around. And I actually thought it was a decent wrap up for the series. Next up, as I mentioned before, I was reading the Mistborn trilogy, and I also finished the last book in April, which is The Hero of Ages. I finished this book actually on camera. I have a reading vlog that I'll link above and below, and if you've seen that, you'll know what my thoughts are about the book and about the series. I wrapped them up spoiler free and pretty detailed, so I'm gonna keep it short. What I most appreciated about this book, about the final book of this series, is that it just everything was tied up so neatly, and it was so impressive to see how every little detail was dealt with at the end. Then again, I didn't super like the climax and the plot twist. The answer to the question we've been asking for ages. Wasn't a big fan of that, but you know, can all be good. Also, this book was way too long, like 400 pages too long, and it could have been so much shorter. It wouldn't be a video if my guinea pigs weren't drinking in between. Next up is a book that I absolutely hated. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, my first 1-star review of 2021. It is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, a beloved book by many, praised by many, hated by me. I don't know what to comment on first, because there's just so much about this that I didn't like. I think the major issue for me was definitely how edgy this book was trying to be, while being casually racist and sexist and homophobic. It was just, I'm not loving it. I don't want to read about that anymore. It was trying so hard to be edgy, but all these characters did was drink and smoke and talk about drinking and smoking and being hungover and then drinking and smoking. That was all they did. Where did it all go? The climax was somewhere in the middle, and then we muddled on through the aftermath, and I was just like, why are we drinking and smoking? I'm sorry. I'm sure there are people who can give a more detailed and better thought out review of why they didn't like this book. There is an excellent review on Goodreads that I really recommend you read if you also didn't like it, or if you want to know what exactly is Cindy talking about, because that review, it's just perfect. I agree with everything. Okay, so I just looked it up, and it's by Rebecca, and it's pretty high up because it got a lot of likes, because I guess I'm not the only one who thought, nah. Moving on from the train wreck that was The Secret History, I wanted to read something that I knew I was gonna love, and I am an avid fan of Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli. I don't know how to pronounce it in English, because in Dutch it's Ghibli. As a child, I was a massive fan of Kiki's Delivery Service. I watched that movie once a week, at least. And a few years ago, I've read The Borrowers, which Arrietty is based on, so I really wanted to pick up Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I am disappointed that this book didn't grip me as much as I wanted it to. I had hoped this would be an amazing read, but in the end, I think I expected it to be less of a children's story. I Don't know why I expected that, because The Secret World of Ariadne was also based on a children's story. However, the writing was super cozy and it made me feel very cozy, especially because, like I said, a month ago it was still pretty cold and I was wearing sweaters and sitting underneath my blanket sipping tea. There were some passages that made me laugh out loud that I really liked, but I expected more and I didn't get that. I don't know. It was a solid 3 stars, you know? Next up, we have my favorite book of the past 2 months, and it is Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez. This book is based on Greece. It's basically Greece but made gay. And it's about Ollie and Will, who met during the summer holidays, and they text and they're madly in love. And then it turns out Ollie's parents move and he now goes to the same school as Will, but apparently Will isn't out yet at his school. So it makes things super awkward and Will isn't texting him back. That's the basic premise. I can't tell you more because it will be a spoiler, but I really love this. I think the reason I love this so much is because it hit home a couple of times. And the conversations Ollie and Will have are very important, very necessary, which I really like. I like when the important messages are there, but it's not the only thing this book is about. I also really like a female character in this book. There are multiple female characters, don't worry. But there's one female character and the author didn't shy away from just making her a mean bitch, basically. And she was so cool. I really like that she was pretty unlikable. Even though we got to know about her situation, she didn't change that much. She was still sometimes a bit mean and I really like that. So next, I was on a contemporary kick. So I saw that Becky Albertalli's new book was out, Kaden Waiting. So I went to the bookstore, picked it up and read it. Kate and her best friend Anderson always fall in love with the same guy, and that's how they do things. They have like co-crushes. And they fall for this one guy who then goes to their school, surprise surprise, after summer holidays. I'm guessing it's a theme in contemporaries. And now suddenly it's getting hard because it's not just a summer fling. This guy is there and they're confronted with the fact that they're both in love with him. And I'm like, yeah, obviously this is gonna go wrong. What did you expect? But well, they didn't expect it to go wrong. Spoiler, it did. This was a 3-star read for me because I was confused about whether or not I liked it because of the premise and the plot and the no way, this is going to go wrong. Like for half of the book I was just a bit skeptic. There were other parts, like the main romance was very cute. I also really liked that this book was really diverse. So what I'm saying is, it is pretty cute if you get past the weirdness. As I said, I was in a contemporary kick. Also because I've bought so many contemporaries like throughout the years, but I usually read them like you would a snack between meals. They're just a quick read between other books. But now I was just in a kick and I wanted to read as many as I could. I picked up Camp by L.C. Rosen. And if you remember, I said that Kaden Waiting had a premise I wasn't sure about. Well, this one also had a premise I was like, I don't know. It's about Randy, who goes to a queer summer camp every summer. And at this summer camp, he met a guy who he really likes, but this guy only likes masculine, buff gay guys. So Randy decides to ditch the nail polish and the musicals, because he's an avid musical lover, and become a new guy, basically, Del, who is buff and masculine. And I was just like, this is not gonna end well, why? But I was also intrigued, especially because the premise of a summer queer camp sounds amazing. And again, this has a wonderfully diverse cast of characters. And honestly, I was just kind of curious to see where this train wreck was gonna go, and I didn't expect it to go in the direction it did. It touched upon some very important topics, such as masculinity and what it means. I think this is a very important book, especially for dealing with these topics and dealing with the sort of, well, you're gay, but you don't have to be that gay. What does that even mean, you know? And that's what this book really takes a good look at from both perspectives. I also really liked L.C. Rosen's writing style. I thought it was pretty funny. So overall, I really liked this. Oh, and I gave it 3 stars. In May, I also read the book The Midnight Library, which I do own a copy of, but I gave it to my mother because I thought she would really enjoy the story. Because I did. I really loved the story. I thought it was such a good pick-me-up. I was feeling pretty down when I picked up this book. It was just a perfect read to really, I don't know, enjoy life again. The main character of the Midnight Library has the opportunity to find out about what if I did something differently, what if I went to this school, or what if I hadn't quit swimming? What would my life look like then? She explores all these options. Do be aware though that this deals with suicide and suicidal thoughts. I think the main message of this book is really important, especially when you feel stuck in life. This book really made me feel a lot better about my life, and I hope if you decide to pick it up that you'll feel the same. Needless to say, I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Then I picked up a non-fiction book because it's been a hot minute since I did that, and I read The Black Friend on Being a Better White Person by Frederick Joseph. Which is exactly what the title says. Frederick Joseph talks about his lives. He tells you stories, and then he tells you how not to be racist. I really liked how accessible he made it, how honest he was about... He told some pretty traumatic events, and that takes guts to put it on a page. Especially with a title like this, you know, why people are gonna pick this up and read about it. So I really appreciated that he put in the work and the effort so that we can learn to be better. But the only thing that made it a bit harder for me to connect with was because it was very focused on America, and I know these problems are not just, they're universal, but still sometimes he talked about very American customs or TV shows, and I couldn't really relate, and he makes assumptions about his readers sometimes, and he was like, you probably did this, and I'm like, no, because I'm not from America, I'm sorry. But other than that, it's applicable to your life. Trust me, it is. And the last book that I read was a reread, and it is The Soldier's Scoundrel, which is about 2 men, Jack and Oliver. Jack is the scoundrel from the title, and Oliver is the soldier, and Jack makes a living helping those in need. Basically, ladies come to him with problems that are not really suitable for daylight, and he fixes them in ways that are also not suitable for daylight. I think it was Oliver's sister who also purchased Jack's services, and the two meet, and they're not exactly friends, though they are attracted to each other, of course. They kind of solve a mystery together. I really like this book. I liked it the first time I read it, though I called it a guilty pleasure. Now I'm not ashamed anymore that I enjoy romance novels. I don't think they deserve the stigma of being shallow or badly written. Obviously, this has adult themes in it, mainly sexual adult themes, so be aware if you are underage. Hi, what's up? Okay, so my camera battery completely died and it wasn't recharged on time. So it's now a few days later and I'm filming the ending of my wrap-up. But it's a good thing that my camera died because I rewatched what I filmed and I noticed that I missed a book. So now I have a chance to talk about it. And that book is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought A Small Angry Planet was meant to be us. It's not. I thought this was going to take a long, hard look at Earth and at humanity, which it did. But it's not the only focus of the book. There are so many topics that Becky Chambers deals with that I absolutely loved. It's like, it takes a look at our culture, at culture in general. What is it? Why do we think this is important? And why do we think that isn't important? I also really love that Becky Chambers said no thank you to the gender binary and created these races that were just all over the place, literally, because they're in space, you know. The non-binary representation in this book was amazing, and it was so interesting what she did with all these different cultures. I keep coming back to cultures, but that was honestly the highlight of this book for me. But other than that, this book is a cozy, feel-good sci-fi. I honestly didn't expect that. I've only read one other sci-fi series, though I think number 4 actually counts as a sci-fi, but okay, a sci-fi in space. I've only read one, and that's Illuminae by a man who shall not be named. And that was very action-packed, very dreadnought this, very spaceship battle that. And this wasn't that at all, which I really liked. I liked how introspective it was, how focused on characters and on relationships and culture. There's also a female-female romance in this, but okay, I haven't even told you what this is about. At first you follow Rosemary, who joins the crew of the Wayfarer, and she has some secrets. Then you jump perspectives and you get to know more about the other crew members of the Wayfarer. And the plot basically starts when they have a huge job ahead of them that will take them a year or even longer, space year, which is longer than a human Earth here to get to this job, and their job is to punch holes through space. Needless to say, this job is probably going to be dangerous. So yes, a very different reading experience than what I thought I was going to get, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's it. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what you thought of all the books I read, if you like them, like especially The Secret History, what did you think? Or tell me about books that you read these past 2 months and loved or didn't love, because let's be honest, it's always fun to hear about people rant about books they didn't like. And I hope to see you again in another video. Bye!